Hi everyone, it's Amanda. Today I'm going to be doing a dark romance recommendation video. So for today's recommendations, I have 5 dark romances that aren't as common as, say, Sophie Lark's There Are No Saints and the Never After series I've been talking about a lot, Hooked and Scarred. Well, I love these books and I definitely recommend them a whole lot on my channel and everything. I wanted to give some new recommendations that aren't put on YouTube or TikTok a lot, so hopefully you find something that might be new that you want to pick up. I have a few that are on the darkest that I've read, and then 2 of them are a little bit lighter. Before we start, I have to mention the dark romance warning. Of course, these books are not for the faint of heart. Of course, they have triggers. This is not for everybody, but I do love them. They're addicting to me. I think that people love these books because maybe they went through a lot of things in their past, and these books help them cope with that and relate to the characters and just have something to release some of that trauma. I don't know why we love it, but I just know we do, and that's perfectly okay. If you do not like this at all, just exit the video and I'll be all okay. But just beware, these are books with lots of trigger warnings like child abuse, sexual assault, rape, dubcon. All of those things are in some of these books. So let's get into it, and I hope you find a really good recommendation. So the first book I want to talk about is Twisted Heathens by J. Rose. And now this is one of the darkest on this list. It's probably the darkest I've read in a while, but I wanted to start with it because it absolutely consumed me when I read it, and the second book is coming out very, very soon. It's January 20 something, I think. It's called Sacrificial Sinners, and I'm very excited to read it because we left off on a kind of a cliffhanger, kind of a reveal. But this book takes place in a mental institution where we have a reverse harem romance, and let me tell you, it is all sorts of fucked up, but it is so addicting. We follow Brooklyn, who just got transferred to Blackwood Institute, which is where this book takes place. We have 4 guys in our harem: Eli, Phoenix, Cade, and Hudson, and as we follow them, we are uncovering some secrets from her past. So there's not a whole lot to go into the summary, but she has a lot of demons. She's coming from an old psych ward that basically locked her up, but in this one you can get out in 3 years and transition back to the real world. But she doesn't want to do that. She wants to die. So she has this plan that she wants to not be here anymore by the anniversary of her crime. So the reason that she's in the psych ward is because of a crime she committed, and she's been through a lot of pain and suffering. But when she meets these 4 guys, they basically take her in as one of their own, and she doesn't want to be friends with them. She doesn't want any connections to the world. She's like, I don't want any friendship. I just want to be alone. I want to basically just be here and go. So she doesn't make it easy for them to be friends with her, but eventually it's this group of misfits, and it is so addicting to read. There's a whole lot going on in this book. There's more of a mystery behind why the institution exists, what's going on with the doctors. There's some really creepy doctors, and it just has such good vibes. It reminds me a little bit of American Horror Story in some ways because of that creep factor, especially towards the end of this book. Not to mention it's a reverse harem, which is always just so juicy, and it did have some really good spicy scenes. Out of all the guys, I originally really loved Phoenix the best, but after reading the whole book, I am definitely team Eli. Definitely recommend this one. It has an amazing playlist that goes along with the book. Next, we have a slightly less dark one on my darkness scale. So this one's called The Wrong Heart by Jennifer Hartman. While I do recommend all of her books, and I love seeing that Still Beating is resurfacing, I am going to recommend this one because I haven't seen a lot of people talk about it, but it is one of my favorites. So all of her books are really good if you want a dark romance. Lotus, Still Beating, and The Wrong Heart. But The Wrong Heart follows a woman who lost her husband, and he donated his organs. So there is a man walking this earth that has her husband's heart, and she wants to have one conversation with this man. So she ends up finding him and emailing him, and they end up striking up a kind of friendship, and she's just really suffering. So she ends up trying to commit suicide, and she ends up in a suicide prevention group with the man that has her husband's heart. But they don't know that about each other in this group. He is cold and broody, and he hates her because she has this really positive personality, and he's like, why are you even in this group? Get the fuck out. You're not suffering enough. And then he is also suffering with his own demons, and so they come together. They end up falling in love, and it is so beautiful, but it's very painful, let me say. I cried a whole lot reading this book. It is so sad watching her deal with the grief grief of losing her husband, and then this man with her husband's heart. I put it on this list because it does have those darker topics of suicide and child abuse, stuff like that, but it is definitely not as dark as some of the other recommendations in this list, but I had to include it because you guys have been loving Still Beating, so I wanted to give this one a spotlight moment. Next, we have one that could be considered the darkest out of this list. It's all very subjective, but I consider it very dark. It had a lot of gore, and that is Into the Dark. This one is There Are No Saints times 10. So if you like There Are No Saints, you might want to give this one a shot. However, there is no HEA. So no happily ever after for our characters. We follow a serial killer and his obsession, Lyra, I don't know which one, but I'm gonna say Lyra because that's how I said it in the book. So him being a serial killer, he's hunting one day and he comes across Lyra, who isn't his typical pick. She's blonde and he usually picks brunettes because he goes after brunettes because they remind him of his mother and he was abused as a child. So we definitely have a lot of trigger warnings for that, and in this one we have a lot of gore. I will warn you, there's a lot of gore to do with this serial killing that's going on. And then Lyra, she wants somebody to be obsessed with her. So gradually you learn about why she is the way she is and why things end up happening the way that they do. But basically, she doesn't believe in love, she believes in obsession. She doesn't want to be loved, she wants somebody to be obsessed with her. So they make the perfect match because he's obsessed with her and she in turn will become obsessed with him. So it is so wild. It's addicting to read. If you like There Are No Saints, heavily recommend this one. I recommend anything by this author. Such good spice. I love this author so much. I read every single novella she puts out. It is always so good, and she has a Valentine's Day one coming out soon. But this one is the first full-length novel that I've read by her, and I thought it was really well done, really well paced, and I loved the ending. Even though there is no HEA, I think it was the perfect ending for them. Next, we have In Peace Lies Havoc by Amal Jones. I had to include an Amal Jones on this list. It's just a must. If you read dark romance, you have to read Amal Jones. Sicko is the common one that I see on dark romance recommendations list. However, while I love that one, and I rated it 5 stars, of course, this series is my favorite because we follow a dark circus theme. Think like Cirque du Soleil, but sex. So it is a whole good time. We have like aerial tricks, we have fire and everything, and while they're doing that, they also have sex on stage and shit. Like, it is a wild, and we have these groups that are fighting each other. There's a whole dynamic going on between families and organizations, and we also have them kidnapping women to come to the circus basically, and it is so wild. So in this one we follow Dove, who is kidnapped by the Midnight Mayhem and groomed to perform for them, and she is a badass bitch. I don't want to get too much into it because it's such a good book to go in blind to, but if you want those vibes, those dark circusy vibes, along with some hot steam, like out of this list, I think these are the hottest books. The third one, particularly In Silence She Screams, is my favorite because it's a male female and it is so hot, but they're all very hot and steamy, and figuring out what's actually going on in each of these books is so addicting because at first you enter this book and you're like, I don't know what this is. What is this organization? Who are they? What is even going on? But then eventually, once you get to the end, she lays it all out for you, and it's chef's kiss. It will play all sorts of mind tricks on you until you're wondering, what did I even read? But I want the next one. And lastly, we have Whispers in the Roars by Kay Webster. So this one is one that I really can't say much about because this book you need to go in blind completely to. But I will say it follows childhood friends to lovers, and this man loves this woman so much. It is an epic love story, and once you find out what's going on, your mind is so blown. This one has some mental health rep that you might not have seen in a whole lot of books, and I absolutely loved it. The darkness comes in with our main character's past, and that's really as dark as it gets. It's mostly child abuse that makes this one a darker romance, but it's such a good love story, and it's pretty thin. I just can't give much away, but I definitely recommend it if you want something with a little bit of a twist and something that will affect you after. I think I've been thinking about this book since I've read it. I remember the story so vividly, even though I've read it, I think like 6 months ago. And that really is a testament to how good a romance book is, because people that read romance, we read a lot of romance books and it's easy to get them confused with others and stuff like that. But this one stands on its own and I highly recommend. So those are my 5 recommendations for today. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe down below for more bookish content. I really want to do another one of these in the future, but thank you so much for being here, and I hope you found a book that will leave you spiraling out of control and absolutely loving it. I know I loved these, so I hope you do too, and I will see you in my next video. Bye guys!